Scott, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate you coming on. We actually spoke last week, because the first time we spoke. And we had thought we covered a lot in our prior conversation, but apparently we haven't scratched the surface. So, we decided, everyone, to come together again and do a proper video. And so the first thing I think we should talk about is the market. We see, I'm looking at coin market cap right now. Last time I refreshed, Bitcoin had just gone below 7,000.
Yeah, here I might as well bring it up as well.
Yeah, it's sitting at 69.21 according to coin market cap. And you see that there's this crypto Twitter, if you have anxiety issues, crypto Twitter is not where you want to hang out.
Yep.
So, it's a lot of, there's a lot of FUD going on right now. And I wanted to get your opinion on what's going on. Like, what do you think's driving the sell-off?
Well, I mean, tons of things. I mean, for me, the thing that came to my mind first was, I guess not necessarily for Bitcoin, but it might just be a reflection of what's happening with Ethereum, all the different issues around the new update and all the miners having trouble with the different changes that are happening. And yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell exactly what's going on because, it's up and down. It's all over the place. We have influences from China and everything that they're doing over there right now with cracking down on all the exchanges. So yeah, there's a lot going on. I'm still just, praying and holding for the Bitcoin halving.
Right. Well, and someone brought that up, what happens if the halving happens and nothing happens? There's no pump before or after. It's just, like, what does that mean? And, it's, I mean, for the people who don't know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, when a halving takes place, the difficulty of mining goes up and the value should go up too. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, because generally what happens is leading up to the halving, miners will hold on to a lot more of the crypto and instead of selling it off right away like they normally are. Right. And it'll kind of fuel that so that when it does go up, naturally they can have like to offset some of their costs, obviously. So, and then they get that pump going as well. And they kind of hold off to hope that that kind of all happens at one time. And yeah, I mean, the only thing that would be more of an issue is that obviously there's a lot less Bitcoin to be mined. So the further we get with more and more halvings, they have much less of a impact or they have much less of an influence on the price. But obviously, there hasn't been very many halvings with Bitcoin. So we're hoping and, going on based on past experiences, I think it went up like 8,000 the first time, like 3,000 the second time. So, if it's anywhere even remotely close to that, I'm sure everyone's going to be really happy.
Right, exactly. And, it's funny to me though, because, and we kind of touched on this in our private conversation, if you were here in 2017, this isn't bothering you. Seeing Bitcoin go below 7,000 is nothing compared to seeing it go from 20,000 to 7. You haven't lived until you've had that ride. So calm down, people.
Yeah. And it's definitely, not even, it's still like double the all-time low or from the last crash, right? It went down to almost like 3,000 or around 3,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, people who were in that time, they're looking at this and they're like, well, I mean, if I bought at 3,000, then I'm still pretty happy with my gains, right? So it really just depends where you bought in and where your perspective is on this. Again, I mean, I'm sure most people who are holding are really just banking on that halving. Right. And hoping that all the hype and everything kind of bubbles all up at the same time as the halving. And otherwise it's like, well, people are going to be kind of concerned as to where to go next. But I mean, that's really, if you're just trying to, make a bunch of money off of Bitcoin rather than more focused on the technology. I mean, I think the technology will play out. But again, I'm obviously looking to make some money too on the halving. So, both sides of the equation are equally important.
Well, I mean, nobody who's honest would say they're not in trying to hope. No one who's being honest is going to tell you that they don't care if it goes up before or after the halving. I mean, if we're
Yeah.
being honest,
Yeah.
but I think this is a good test to see what your actual reason for being in the space is.
Mhm.
Because if you're in it solely for the blockchain aspect, none of this should bother you.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
because blockchain is going to exist even if Bitcoin goes to zero, because Bitcoin isn't. It's one of those things where I have this program that works, and what am I using it for? If it doesn't work for this anymore, I can still use it for that. It's
Yeah.
a situation
Yeah.
similar to that. You
Yeah,
know,
whenever I, like jump in an Uber or, I'm just talking to someone new about Bitcoin or blockchain, if they don't know what I'm talking about, I'll be like, Bitcoin, and they'll be like, oh yeah, but didn't that like go way down and crash? And I'm like, yeah, but it's like the way that the analogy that I like to use, it's like, well, even if Bitcoin was gone in like 5 years or whatever, and we were all using some other technology, it's like people were getting stuck on the first version of Windows or the first like operating system or something, and then they're confused as to why people want to use newer versions,
right?
when obviously there's going to be improvements every time they create something new, and you don't have to get like hung up on the old medium, so to speak. um Obviously people want to make money, so like that's why Bitcoin is much more of an attractive thing to be investing in.
Right.
But when you look at the actual technology in general, I mean, like I got into blockchain and crypto around the crash. Like that's when I started. So obviously for me, it wasn't so much about like I'm trying to make a lot of money because like I got in just before and lost a bunch of money, and then that's when I started to get really serious. So it wasn't like I had faith in the technology and I was interested, and I wanted to see where it was going, and that's when I started exploring all these different social media applications on the blockchain and all the different things. And I think we're getting closer and closer to that point where it's going to be mass adopted with like ENS, and being able to have like human readable names for addresses and all the different things that are coming up. And I think the tech is where people should be looking, in the same sort of way that the internet evolved.
Well, we had talked about before the .eth domains, right? And I think that that's going to be something that drives a lot of people to the space too. Once you get these other uses for all of this stuff, I mean, like with the .eth is a .ethereum, right?
Yep.
And Ethereum has been the backbone of the smart contract market since, wow, how long has Ethereum been out? 4 or 5 years now.
Something like that, yeah.
Right. So, you have these other things that you can do aside instead of focusing on trading and selling. The meat of it, the program, is so can be used for so many different things. We're really just scratching the surface talking about the financial aspect. There's so much more you can do with this stuff. I remember I had wrote a article um, a couple of years ago, and I was thinking about, well, if we ever did colonize Mars, what will we use? And we would need a currency that would be usable for everyone. That when it got back to Earth to do whatever it needed to do, wouldn't be, well, this is ours, and you all have to do with go by what we say because this is our money that goes up to the colony. Well,
Mm.
if you had crypto, it would be a medium of exchange that we could use that didn't have a central place for anyone to claim dominance with. It's just, you have something that I need, and here you go, give it to me, and then, like crypto is intended to be used. as
Yeah.
opposed to, well, the United States dollar is the world currency now. Like, well, no. And it's just, it's that it almost feels like we're limiting the potential by keeping it on such a narrow topic.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The majority of the conversation is around decentralized finance, and that's why I sort of originally started to dive into social media and look at everything else that's going on. So now we have all these different applications. There's games, social media. We're now seeing like a new version of the internet, so to speak, starting out. Like Unstoppable Domains has all these uncensorable websites that they're getting going. ENS with .eth is starting to do the same thing. And yeah, there's a lot of focus on privacy and being able to monetize different things that you couldn't before, like Brave browser. You can earn money for seeing ads. There's so many different things that they're enabling that just looking at the financial aspect is just such a narrow lens, and there's just so much more available
Right.
for everyone to check out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and something else that came up this past week is, we're talking about the financial aspect, and everyone's talking about the unbanked, right? And giving people in developing countries the ability to take control of their finances. But we're not talking about providing those people with a stable internet connection. The thing about Bitcoin that we take for granted in America and Canada and countries similar is that our internet is really good. And we complain when we can't watch 4K. You have some places that you're still back in dial-up days.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, running a node on that would be a nightmare. So it's like, well, maybe we should not replace the conversation, but we need to include that conversation, that we
Yeah.
need to build up the infrastructure as opposed to just getting it into people's hands.
Yeah, we really need Elon Musk to solve the world Wi-Fi problem.
Right. Well, I mean, and I, people give him crap for his antics, but the guy is trying to do something, I think monumental that is going to help in the future. But I was looking at Twitter again, and I actually need to stop looking at Twitter so much because I guess there's an issue with. Now I don't know too much about Hex because I saw the back and forth about it, so I just basically said, okay, I'm not getting involved with that.
Yeah.
And I saw certain people, and I'm not going to name any names, who are promoting Hex, and I'm just like, no. So
I've stayed far away from it as well. I don't want to get involved with it. I don't like to usually like endorse any kind of crypto. I'm always kind of like, I'll endorse like platforms or applications that are doing something, but I don't like to endorse anything that's like extremely, financially tied to what people might be doing and how they'll invest. So, it's just a messy game to play, especially when they end up being scams and different things.
right, and I think my biggest concern is when you have people getting into um, any project based on influencers, and that's a hard thing to say because I think to a point we're all influencers to a point. I mean, when you go to the family dinner and you tell someone about Bitcoin, you're being an influencer, right? You're influencing them to get into crypto.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have some people who are influencers and they don't care who gets into different things, they just want their money. That's terribly dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said before, like PewDiePie endorsing DLive as his exclusive live streaming.
Right.
Like that's it's a dangerous game because it's like too many people don't really understand crypto or blockchain. And I don't even think he's doing it like maliciously. I just don't think I don't think they would bother to, read the white paper or anything like that. And I just wouldn't expect that of them. So when people put that much trust in an influencer for their recommendations, and they probably don't have any expertise, or not even expertise, just not really thorough enough with the things that they're endorsing or using, it's like, it's hard for anyone to trust that. And most people are just completely unaware. So
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, that's one reason why one of my favorite YouTubers is Crypto Indio, because she always tells people to do your own research.
yeah.
Don't just take my word for it and jump into this stuff. And I'm not telling you to jump into the stuff. I'm just telling you what's going on, and you need to find
Hmm.
out for yourself.
Yeah.
And I respect that a lot. When she does that, because I had stories. I've heard stories of people who got into scams because someone on YouTube told them that they should, and they lost thousands of dollars. I
Yeah.
mean, we can go back to the BitConnect issue, and that's all that was. That was crypto influencers running wild, telling people to get into something they had no business telling people to get into,
Hmm.
and a lot of people lost a lot, and it's a double-edged sword when you're doing this, because people look to us as authority. Um, but we also have to remember we have a responsibility to these people to try to steer them away from, you know, things that'll hurt them in the end, you know.
Hmm.
So that's how I feel about it, and that's probably one reason why my
Yeah.
subscribe kind of so low.
Because you're not pushing
Because
the
I'm not stealing a bunch of different
yeah.
stuff, you know.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
no, and I totally agree. Like when I do like reviews of different platforms, I'm rarely like, oh, like go on this platform and spend all of your money and buy all their tokens. Usually I'm more like, this is just what I'm using right now, and I like it, and these are my thoughts on it. But I'm willing to get scammed or whatever and then let people know about the platform. And several platforms have gone down, like Narrative Hyperspace, Sola, Waku, and Whale Shares and Bear Shares all have issues. All these like Steam alternatives.
yeah,
And I'll always go on there, put a little bit of crypto in myself, put in a bunch of time, months, and then I'll kind of let people know how my experience was. Not necessarily that I have some authority over how good this is compared to something else. It's just more like, this is what I'm using, and I don't even invest a ton. It's more like, look at what I can earn from this, because I'm
right,
more about like being able to earn and monetize. And it's like there's no risk to downloading the Brave browser and getting some free cryptocurrency for your ads. I mean, who knows, maybe there could be a security or a privacy issue in the future, but comparing it to like traditional platforms, obviously it's much, much, much less of a problem. But yeah, I always kind of go with it, like, if anyone's going to get scammed or something bad, it's going to be me, and then I'll
right,
let you know,
right, exactly.
versus like me telling you to go do it and then something bad happening to them.
Well, I mean, and I come from a tech support cybersecurity background, and that's kind of what you have to do. I'm going to let my computer get infected so I can tell you how to avoid your computer getting infected.
Yeah,
You take the risk as a professional so that your customers don't have to deal with it.
exactly.
And that's kind of how we need to deal with this. If you're if you in your heart know that this project is a scam, you should be doing everything in your ability to keep people from investing in that scam. Okay.
Yeah.
But if you know it's a scam and then you go tell people that they should get involved with it, I don't know. That's a character thing. It's like, well, all right, well, I can't really trust you anymore, because you said that I should do this instead of telling me the risk.
Yeah.
And then that's just it it's it's one of those things where, like I said, it's a double-edged sword, and as crypto influencers we have to keep that kind of stuff in mind. um I wanted to ask your opinion though on so last week, it's not really a thing anymore, it kind of died down. Well, last week there was this whole issue about pornography on
Yeah.
on Twitter. And it started with basically some people saying that, it should be banned. And then other people were defending it as freedom of speech, freedom of expression. So I wanted to get your opinion on that. How do you feel? Where do you stand on the porno wars?
Yeah, so I know it's a pretty controversial topic. I know I for me personally, I like to lean towards the free speech argument, but in this case, it's hard for me to rationalize that because a few things. Like, the whole point of free speech is to protect opinions that might otherwise be unpopular, or that you could voice your opinion regardless. And I don't really think sex is an opinion. Um, in one respect, I mean, like, obviously preference is a completely different thing from the act of having it. But the important thing to consider is that there's so many legal restrictions around pornography that if you compared it to free speech, like in the town square, you can't have sex in the town square. You can't have sex in public. There's consent that is needed for both parties. There's age restrictions. There's so many different laws that if you would say that that is a subset of free speech, then that wouldn't logically hold up, because everything in free speech doesn't have any of those laws or restrictions placed upon them.
Right.
So logically, to me, I couldn't rationalize that if this is free speech, that it's like a subset and it's encompassed within free speech, because it would not have any of those restrictions or laws. Thus, to me, I would not say it's really foundational to free speech. I know a lot of people would say, oh, but it's like once you start making exceptions and this and that, it's like, I understand that and I completely respect that, but I would just say that it's not really an exception to me, because again, it doesn't really fit into the point of what free speech is supposed to protect, and just like the foundations of what free speech was there for in the first place. So that's kind of my opinion. I still respect both sides and I understand both sides of the argument, but I fall a little bit more to it's probably better to just keep like it on porn platforms and keep social media for social media, because
Right.
it's like services should be designed for what they're designed for. Once you start saying it's like, oh, well, they have to include this and they have to include this, then every service will just provide every other service and it'll all be bad. And there won't be, like, you need to have specific things dedicated to certain things. Otherwise it becomes more diluted and not as like the whole point of all these different niche things is because they're good at what they do and they're good at the service that they provide. If you start to dilute that and spread it as thin as possible, then it's just you're like BuzzFeed selling like kitchenware at Walmart. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's like it's for news and for videos. It's like once you start to spread yourself so thin, you kind of water down the brand and the whole point of what the product is supposed to be. So that's my take.
Well, it's like focus on what you're supposed to be doing as
Yeah.
opposed to trying to be everything to everybody.
Yeah.
But because I didn't know that people were posting pornography on Twitter until it came up.
Fair
And
enough.
I was I was like, wait a minute, you can't do that. Oh, look, I guess you can.
Yeah.
And my view on it was, okay, but Twitter in and of itself, you should not be putting this on here. And I'm with you on the keep it on the adult sites.
Yeah.
Now, in defense of the adult industry, though, I don't, well, the industry and the people who partake in it. I'm hearing suggestions about facial recognition, right? Like you'll have to confirm with an ID or with the scan of your face that you're over 18. No, no.
Yeah, that's not gonna
No,
happen.
no, no. Okay, that's a mistake. And anyone who thinks that's a good idea is opening a Pandora's box that you don't want to open. Because once you open that box, then everything that you do is going to be, you need to give a facial scan to verify this is who you are. And you shouldn't have to do that. That's a line too far for me. You
Yeah,
know,
absolutely.
um, and then on the same at the same time, you have these companies that are cutting off payment processes to people who are in that industry, are businesses that are in that industry, websites like PayPal did. And once you start talking about cutting off people's access to funds, now you have an issue with, okay, you're basically saying that this industry shouldn't exist. It shouldn't be allowed to be a source of income, right? And I think that that's where crypto can play a part, because if you accept Bitcoin, I could send you Bitcoin and not have to worry about what PayPal thinks. I just need to know your address. Where do you want me to send it? Right.
Yeah.
And
no, I totally agree. Like, I think, just real quick, like when PayPal cut funding to Subscribestar because they were offering, an alternative to Patreon because Patreon was censoring, or when they, cut funding to Gab, and they're just really acting as this like moral authority. But it's scary when financial institutions and payment processors start to get in the mix of determining who should be allowed to receive funds, and it gets much more serious for everyone when their finances get involved.
right. So once you start messing with their ability to receive funds, that can snowball into people's lives very fast. And I don't think these organizations, these payment processors, understand that, apparently the they don't understand how much saying you can't do this affects people's lives. I don't even think it's a consideration for them, and that's why I think crypto is so important. That's why Bitcoin is so important. That if you tell me I have a need and I say, what do you need? Okay, I need $100 to pay for some medicine. Okay, what's your address? Boom, $100. Right? Not, let me go down to the Western Union, send you $100. That's actually going to be about $85 once you receive it, and then you have to go through all that stuff.
And then if they don't approve of the medicine that you're buying or the procedure, the surgery or whatever, it's like, well, then they might just stop it, right? Exactly. And who knows how far that eventually goes into the future, right? Maybe one day they say, any payments regarding plastic surgery we think is immoral, and we're going to prevent that and stop anything around that, or whatever it might be.
Right.
Because once they open that, and once they start going down that line, it's like, how far is it going to go? Because we saw before it was about like preventing, total free speech, like with Gab, and with Subscribestar, it was kind of like really just seemed like they were protecting the monopoly at that point. Right. Because like one of the top executives like worked at Patreon or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was because it was a while ago, but yeah, it seems very, very concerning when they really just get involved in these processes. And it's like, yeah, maybe it's just for pornography right now, but like, who knows what it is in a year from now.
Right. And, then you have the whole issue of, you're a US based company, and even if we took it to a freedom of speech, freedom of expression level, well, the Constitution of the United States says you have that. So for a company to say, yeah, but not here, but you're operating from within a country that has that law, now you're having a conflict. I understand if it's a country that doesn't have those laws, like, you're in some, I don't want to point fingers at anybody, but, there are certain countries that don't have freedom of speech laws.
Like in Canada.
Okay.
we don't have full freedom of speech, but we're pretty good over here. But
no, I didn't mean you guys.
I know. Yeah, I'm just kind of messing with some Canadians. Some people understand. I mean, like, yeah, we'll just not worry about that one.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up, because I think most people in America think that you do, because True. You're right there. And yeah. Canada's actually a lot like America in the way it is, like Vancouver is used in place of Los Angeles for filming all the time. That's how similar the countries are. but yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a constitution, right? So we just have we just have our privileges, and a privilege can be taken away, right? Like there's a lot of laws that are placed on top of what we can and can't say, and the list grows every year. So,
Didn't know that. Well, and well, I mean, that's actually a very good point, and thank you for bringing that up. Because in places like Australia, where the government is basically saying you can't have a private phone, you start to really wonder, well, what does my country think about that?
yeah,
I don't think a lot of us in this space, which is funny to me because crypto is an international community. You have people from Canada, the United States, Malta, South Korea, China, all in the same bubble. But we're living under different rules. So it's like, well, how do you, I'm talking to someone who's in Canada and we don't have the same laws. So I could say something that people would have to say that's his right to say, but you can't.
yeah,
Right?
yeah. It feels like it's just all one place, but it's really so many different laws and restrictions and regulations that are all, you don't really notice it because it wouldn't come through, because if they can't say it, they're not going to be saying it, so you obviously won't see that.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's, and it actually speaks a lot to the privilege that we take for granted here. You do have privileges in the United States that other people would kill to have,
Yeah,
and we just take it for granted. Like I can drive from California to New York and not have to show any papers.
yeah,
Right? That's a major thing for a lot of people because some people can't go from city to city without showing some kind of paperwork, and we just take it for granted, so stop taking it for granted, people. But no, thank you for pointing that out, and that's good to consider. Um, so let's talk about so when you first started your channel, was it originally intended to be crypto, or was it more of a technology? How did you get started in doing this?
yeah. So when I originally started, I was really just mainly focused on Steam, because I just got into the space and I was exploring different social media alternatives, and Steam was kind of the main one, Steam It, at the time, and I just really dove into that, and I started sharing YouTube videos on Steam and learning about Steam and my process, and I realized there wasn't a lot of like information or like educational material on how to use it, and the learning curve was just extremely challenging for like new people to get into it. So I started sort of documenting my process, and different things that as I learned them, I would sort of like do a guide or a tutorial on how to do it. And then I was just using really YouTube as like a backup for a long time, because I was uploading to DTube, decentralized tube, on the Steam network.
Right.
And then I was just using YouTube as like a backup. And then eventually I sort of expanded and started posting everywhere, YouTube, all the other platforms. And yeah, for a long time, I was just doing tutorials on Steam. And then when I started getting all these other platforms, I was doing reviews and tutorials on those platforms and guides. And yeah, it just kind of took off from there. And I just eventually was interviewing different CEOs of different platforms, and just really just being super involved in the space.
Yeah, and that's actually similar to, when I first started doing this, it was primarily just it was tutorials and a way to get myself out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started actually talking to people in the space. I've had a couple of head of projects and a couple of CEOs already, but then I wanted to also talk to the people who are actually in the same situation as me. The content creators. So yourself, BitBoy Crypto, Naomi Brockwell, things like that. And it's funny because there's so many different platforms out there that people use in this space, but primarily it's YouTube.
Yeah.
It's once you want to build that audience, that massive audience, you have to come here, and it's interesting to me because we have a lot of YouTube alternatives in development and some that have already came out, like DTube, for example, but the audience just isn't there yet,
Yeah.
and it makes me wonder how long it's going to be before that audience shows up. But you mentioned DLive earlier, and I think DLive has a chance of being a Twitch replacement, and
Yeah.
maybe a Mixer. But YouTube, I don't know. I think YouTube might be where we're all going to be for at least the foreseeable future. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say any one of them is the perfect replacement. I mean, they all have their resistant points, so to speak. Like I said, like Steam, it's pretty challenging when you get started. Like the fact that you have to like wait a week to get your account approved, since they're going to be lending you free Steam to get you started. But most people don't really consider that. They're like, why are they not letting me just join?
Right.
And there's so many different resistance points for each of the various platforms as to why people might not jump on there yet. Like Library for a long time was like you had to download a desktop app, and I knew from the get-go that that was just not viable, that you were gonna have everyone like pull out their laptop and have to download something to use
Right.
it. And there was no like mobile access, and obviously they're improving that, and now they have a mobile app, and they have a website that you can go to use it. So I think they're all kind of like learning as they go what they need to be changing and improving on. And like it's definitely getting better, but it's not quite there yet. But I think, maybe after the next halving and all this hype goes, maybe we'll see a huge rise in people looking at different crypto platforms as well. Because I'm sure the price and the value of like Steam and Libraries coin and all these other coins are going to shoot up, and that'll probably attract a lot of people to the platforms as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm really interested to see how the next like year or two plays out.
Yeah. Well, no, and that's a great point because, well, with Library, for example, of all of them, to me, Library has the best shot to be the YouTube replacement. And the reason why I say that is because Library already made it possible to import all of your YouTube videos into their platform.
Yeah.
With the sync feature.
Yeah.
And if you're not using that feature by now, you're not trying to be in this for the long haul. Yeah. It's a great feature. You actually don't have to do anything. You just have to sync it together, and then it goes. And they're very active on social media. So, you see Library or people who work for Library on Twitter all the time. So, and that's a great way to drive awareness of your platform.
Yeah, I think it's really important that you're active on social, because say for me, like everyone keeps telling me to check out PocketNet, and every now and then I go back and I check, and I can't like successfully register for some reason. I tried reaching out to them too, and it still haven't really heard anything. And then I go and I look at their social, and they haven't tweeted since May, and I'm like, okay, is it an abandoned project? Like I have no idea, right? So it's like they have to keep somewhat active on these platforms, otherwise to me it just seems like they're just abandoning the project, right? And like they need to have that kind of presence, and I think Library is doing a good job of that. And a lot of the bigger platforms are doing a pretty good job. And I think BitChute is also good with how you can just sync your YouTube as well. BitTube also allows for that. In the last upgrade to DTube, they allowed you to import your YouTube videos, which is great. But yeah, if they started to have a way for you to automatically sync, I think that would also be huge. And yeah, it's really just about making it easy, right? Like you said, like you don't even have to do anything with Library. You could just sign up and all of your stuff will be there. And then one day YouTube bans you for commercial viability and all your stuff is protected and it's already on Library, and you can just switch over.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, and we'll start winding down. But YouTube putting in the terms of service that a channel can be deleted for, how do they word it? That is not commercially viable.
If it's not commercially viable, yeah.
So okay, so I'm screwed.
Same.
Right. So, all right, but I mean, what do you think the reasoning is behind that? Like what?
Um,
Why put
I would say
that?
what most people have said is that they're just trying to become the next Netflix,
Mhm.
right? So they want it to just be like a specific curated kind of what you'll be seeing is what they've approved, and it's all like trusted partner content, and it's better for their advertisers, and they want to compete with Netflix. I think that's what it's really about, and YouTube Premium and everything. It's really about them trying to become one of those big streaming services, compete with Netflix and like Apple and the new Disney Plus. Since
Right.
they're all kind of getting into that game, Google wants to be a player in that game as well. That's kind of the way that I've looked at it and what I've heard a lot of people saying on YouTube.
And it's a lot faster just to kick people off than to build a new platform.
Exactly, exactly. They have the biggest network already that they can just tap into, and it's much easier to just get rid of, the people that they don't want and do it slowly. So that I can't remember what the phenomenon was, but it was like when eBay first started,
Mm.
it was yellow, and one day they switched it to white, and everyone was so upset, and then eventually they reverted back, but then every day they slightly changed the pigment to
Right.
more and more white, and then a year later it was white and no one said anything.
Because it was red.
And exactly. So that's what they're doing right now. It's like, yeah, well, in a year from now, when I get banned for commercial viability, they'll be like, what are you talking about? This has been around for a year. Like, this has been
Right.
around for so long. And it's like, everyone knows about this. And it's like, well, like we weren't happy when it happened. And
Right.
obviously we had to agree to the terms since we want to keep using the platform. But, just because it's been around or you did it slowly doesn't mean it's any better.
Well, and then you have the people that they are trying to get rid of. Like you have a lot of political things on YouTube that they don't like.
Yeah.
So they could use that against them. Like uh, advertisers don't want to put their advertisements in front of your video, so you got to go.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. It's sneaky. It's really sneaky. They put that in there, and the whole thing about is this for kids thing,
Mm,
and and
yeah.
I'm like, okay, guys, I'll be over here.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I made a video on that. I think it's crazy because what's going to happen is, because if you do say it's for kids, then they're going to be like, okay, well, we're not going to put any ads on this anymore because we don't want to have any issues with, like with privacy and with ads and with the COPPA restrictions.
Mhm.
So no one's going to make videos for kids anymore. And that's going to eliminate a ridiculous amount of gaming videos, Minecraft, Let's Play, Fortnite,
Right.
because it's not necessarily if it was purposefully made for kids. If you actually look at the policy, and I did a deep dive into it, it's like, is this appealing to kids?
Mhm.
Even like child celebrities, they're all screwed. They can't make any more money
Right.
because it's innately appealing to kids. So you can't interview them. They are not going to make any money themselves anymore. It's up to 13. So that's a huge audience that is just going to be eliminated. And essentially all content on YouTube is going to age up, and what Tim Pool suggested is that everything's going to become political and culture commentary because it's the easiest thing to do. Not to
Right.
trivialize what he does, but it's much easier to do that than to come up with like writing sketches and like doing
Right.
all these different things and like coming up with all this original content. It's much easier to just talk about what's going on.
Well, no, and
And
you're right. You're right about that because like if you're talking about cybersecurity, not too many 9-year-olds are running around talking about cybersecurity,
yeah,
right? So I can pretty much assume that video's for adults, you
yeah,
know. And you're 100% right about the children actors who have channels. Most of that stuff's going to be demonetized too because it by default this is for children,
yeah,
right? And you're right that's a great point that's actually to it's gonna cut off I think it's gonna cut off a lot of the YouTube usage. And but Tim Pool also said, and I like Tim Pool, but he made a good point that they're trying to get the Jimmy Kimmels, they're trying to get like you said, they're trying to compete, and they want to bring that crowd. And they're like, if I look at my YouTube right now, it used to be the people who showed up first are the people I subscribed to.
Mm.
Now it's topics. It's like,
Mm.
okay, well, this is in the news, so we'll show you this first. Like, but it's I think it's gonna be I think it's a detriment to them because people came to YouTube because it was a place that people could go that I can't get millions of people. I can't go to NBC. I can't go to CBS. I can't go to Fox because they won't let me through the door. But I can
Mm.
come to YouTube, and I think they're risking losing that.
Yeah, they kind of, their main purpose was to get rid of the gatekeepers, and they've become a gatekeeper in that process because they've surpassed all of the previous gatekeepers so much that they're almost kind of like, well, I mean, why not be one now? We're way beyond the previous ones. Like maybe we deserve to be, or like we've earned the right to.
Right.
And they're really just betraying all of the things that they originally set out to be. I mean, YouTube originally was just like cat videos. Um, but like as it matured, it's really like it's been much more interesting, long format content, you know much more educational, much more, just more like culturally aware. And it wasn't just like silly, ridiculous things. And it's
Right.
actually culturally relevant, and politically, and just super important for free speech, and giving everyone a voice. But you know obviously now that's not really the case anymore. So it's really like, well, where do we go then? Well, like maybe check out BitChute. And people are like, well, I mean, it's good, but it's not exactly what I want it to be. It's like, well, library or DTube or wherever. And it's like they're all not quite there yet, but hopefully they'll get to that point where it's like they could be a very good replacement. I think they're good, but if someone was on YouTube and they're like, why would I go here? I'd be like, well, it's awesome, it's slightly slower. And they're like, okay, well, I'll just stick with the faster one that's like
Right.
higher resolution, and you know
Right.
what I mean? So and it has a better app, and et cetera, et cetera. It's like once they can compete with that, which I understand why it's challenging, obviously, because they have so much more infrastructure to host video. um, but it's like as we get closer to that point, I think more people will realize that these alternatives are viable and worth putting the time into checking out and using instead. I think they don't have broad enough categories for everyone yet, but we need to convince people to go and start those categories rather than wait for them to pop up.
Right. Right. Yeah, and that's a great point. So, you know what? Why don't we end it there? And of course, you're welcome back anytime. I appreciate you taking the time and spending the last hour with me.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's good talk. It's all super relevant to what's going on. And yeah, I appreciate it. Just feel free to tag me, and I'll reshare them on all of my networks as well. And we can get this out to the masses.